Hi everybody, it's Nikki here and welcome to a bookish video. So today we are doing my May reading wrap up, which is where I talk about all the books that I read in the month of May and give you my thoughts and opinions on them. I do not give synopsis unless I read a book that was not originally on my TBR for the month. Because I figure I already give you a synopsis during my Bookgammon TBR video, so I don't need to keep repeating myself for those books. But I will give you a synopsis for books, as I say, that were not on my original TBR for the month because I haven't mentioned them before. So at the end, I will also give you my stats for the month, so keep till the end if you want to hear those. So in the month of May, I started with Stolen by the Highlander. This is a Mills and Boon historical Regency, I think it is, historical book. And I gave this one 4 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed this one. In fact, I enjoyed it so much, I actually bought the sequel to this. Because this is part of a series by Terry Brisbane, and the sequel follows one of the side characters in this book, and he gets his own story in the next one. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was able to pick up the second book pretty cheap. It was only a couple of quid. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. If you love programs like Outlander, anything Scottish, Scottish romance, this book is for you. I really enjoyed it. My notes say great characters, interesting but predictable plot. Would like to read the next book in the series. Yes, of course it's a romance, so of course it's predictable. Of course we know what's going to happen at the end. This one though, I did feel like normally I give my Mills and Boon about 3 stars, generally because they're not great literature, they're not amazing books. They're just guilty pleasures for me, but this one had quite a good plot, a real good, like, intricate plot that was actually happening. It did feel like an episode of Outlander, let's be honest. And that's why it got a bit of a higher score than most of these Mills and Boons. It got a 4 stars. The next book I read was Only a Monster by Vanessa, and I can tell you, it's not a mermaid book. I thought this was going to be a mermaid book because there was mermaids on the Fairy Loot cover. It isn't. I gave it a 4 stars. I did enjoy it, despite it not being a mermaid book. My notes say not a mermaid book, but a great time travel book with POV from a monster. Great characters, great magic system, and set in London, so felt familiar. Yes, this is told from a monster's point of view. Definition of monster is relatable, but is debatable, but I really thoroughly enjoyed this. I do think there is going to be a sequel, so I will be keeping my eyes out for that, and I will be purchasing it because I really did enjoy this. There is a little bit of a love triangle happening in here, and I know who my heart is for. Whether that happens, I do not know, but I really loved the political, nothing to do with politics. I really loved the intricate relationships in here, and just the whole sort of trying to escape who you are and coming to terms with who you are as well. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Changing of perceptions as well. It was really fun, and it was action from the get-go. Like, as soon as you got into the story, bam, something was happening and you were right into the book, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So 4 stars. But not a mermaid book. It would have got 5 stars if it had been a mermaid book. The next book I read, now I did read this as an e-arc from NetGalley, finally figured that out. I've had NetGalley since 2019, but I've not been able to use it because I haven't been able to figure out how to download the books for me to actually read. I'm a little bit of a dinosaur when it comes to technology. My daughter takes the mickey out of me all the time for this. But I finally figured out, and all because of this book. I did read the e-arc, so ebook form, but it has now been published at the beginning of June. So I bought the hardback copy because, like, I need this. This is a mermaid book. This is The Sea Women by Chloe Timms, and I will give you the synopsis for this one because this was not on my original TBR. So basically it says, this island is built on stories, tales, lore, lies. Esther has known nothing but Eden's Isle her whole life. After a fire left her orphaned and badly scarred, Esther was raised by her grandmother in a deeply religious society that cut itself off from the mainland in the name of salvation. Here, fear rules, fear of damnation, fear of the outside world, and fear of what lurks beneath the water. A corrupting evil the islanders call the Sea Women. But Esther wants more than a life where touching the water risks corruption, where her every move is watched and women are controlled in every aspect of their lives. Married off, the women of the island must conceive a child within their appointed mother year, or be marked as cursed and cast into the sea as a sacrifice in an act called the untethering. When Esther witnesses a woman untethered, she sees a future to fear. Her fate awaits, a loveless marriage, her mother year declared, and after a brief taste of freedom, the insular world Esther knows begins to unravel. It says The Sea Women is a fiercely written and timely feminist novel, at once gothic, fantastical, and truly unforgettable. And I completely agree with all of that. It is gothic, it is dark, but it is such an amazing read. I gave this one 5 stars. And my notes say, gothic, dark, thrilling story about an isolated island in which men use religion to control women, blaming the sea women for all that goes wrong. An adult mer story that is definitely on the to-buy list. And I did buy it. Think the Salem witch trials, but with mermaids. It's awesome. I tend to steer away from feminist books. Not because I don't agree with feminism, I do, I really do. But some people just get feminism just a tad wrong for me. It comes across as too man-hating for me sometimes. So feminism in books is a little bit of a touch and go with me, because they need to get it right, or I don't like it. This one got it absolutely spot on. I did feel a little anxious going into it when I realised it was based on a religious kind of cult almost, but only because I feel very uncomfortable when religion is used in books or film as a way to show evil. I don't believe that religion is evil at all. I believe that the people who use religion as an excuse to be evil, you know, that's what it is. But religion itself is not an evil thing. And until I got that into my head, that this isn't a book to say that religion is evil at all, or that religion is wrong in any way, shape or form. It wasn't the religion that was the problem. It was the men using the religion to put the fear of God into these women so that the women would basically do as they were damn well told. And yeah, once I got my head around that, it was much, much easier for me to consume the story. But that did take me a few chapters to get that into my head. But that's not the book's fault. That's my own fears and dislikes of religion being used in books as a form of evil. This didn't use it as evil, but I felt like it was like, oh, we're in a religious book. So yeah, just read it. That's all I'm going to say. I loved it. I really, really enjoyed it. So The Sea Women by Chloe Timms. Oh, by the way, close up of that cover. This is the island, but underneath is the shadow of a mermaid. How beautiful is that? I'm going to be rereading that for the rest of my life, I can tell. The next book I read was actually an ebook on my Amazon Fire tablet through Kindle Unlimited, and that was The Bridge Kingdom. And my notes on that one say, trained to infiltrate and spy on the enemy while posing as the new bride to its king, enemies to lovers, political intrigue, and awesome characters. ... Eli! Yes, there was a young boy character called Eli in the book, and my little mother heart just wanted to give that boy a hug. Really did. Really, really wanted to give him a big, big hug. I really enjoyed this one. I believe I've now downloaded the second book in the series. It is one that I am thinking about possibly purchasing in the future. Or I might just keep it on my Kindle. Well, Amazon Fire tablet. I don't have a Kindle. Might ask for one for Christmas. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I liked how the character learned that what she had been taught all her life was actually not quite true. And it's kind of, it was really interesting in that your main character started on the wrong side of the war, and it was really interesting to see it from that perspective, whereas most stories show you like the hero. We actually, I would say this is a villain story, because she is definitely on the wrong side of the war, and I loved it, and I will be continuing with this series with the second book when I can get it onto my Bookgammon TBR. I gave that 5 stars as well. I really, really enjoyed it. The next book I read, I was in the mood. After I'd read Stolen by the Highlander, I was really in the mood. So I picked up another one by Jenny Fletcher. This is Besieged and Betrothed, another Mills and Boon historical. I was just in the mood. So I'm going to read you the back of this one, because again, this one was not on my original TBR. So it says, bound to her enemy, ruthless warrior Lothar the Frank has laid siege to Castle Howard, but there's a fiery redhead in his way, and she's not backing down. More tomboy than trembling maiden, Lady Juliana Danville would rather die than lose the castle. Caught on opposite sides of a war, Lothar and Juliana find a marriage bargain is being brokered to bring peace, but is blissful married life possible when Juliana has a dangerous secret hidden within the castle walls? What I loved about this one is it is based or inspired by or set in a true historical time in England, the time when Stephen and Matilda were fighting out for the throne. My notes on this one, did I write down which king had just died? So my notes say, based on real history war between Stephen and Matilda after Matilda's father, King Henry I, had died. Sassy woman, brooding man, loved the ending, and he took 5 years to say, I love you. Yes. So the history of this is King Henry I dies, and he leaves Matilda, his daughter, the throne. However, she's not in England at the time. So her cousin, Stephen, goes, yoink, and takes the throne for himself. And then Matilda had to fight Stephen for that throne. She lost, I think. So she backed down and ended up, her son became king after Stephen was deposed. So it is based on that true history event. And so that really spoke to my history-loving heart. I really, really liked that, and I really enjoyed this story. And yeah, my notes mentioned that it took him 5 years at the end of the story to say I love you. And I really like that, because we always think of Mills and Boone as being insta-lovey and, you know, they fall in love forever and ever after knowing each other for a week. And it doesn't seem realistic, but in this one, he did take a little bit longer to say I love you, because he was damaged. And slowly but surely, she broke him down and she helped him. So this one did get 3 stars for me. I did really enjoy it. But yeah, a little bit of guilty pleasure there. The next book I read was Winterkeep, book 4 in the Graceling series by Kristen Cashore. This was my buddy read with Charlotte, and we are done now with this series. Book 5, I believe, is due out later this year. I gave this one 3 stars. My notes on this say, every book in the series feels like it's the first. Lots of slow going in the beginning, finally gets interesting in the last 100 pages. I do want a blue telepathic fox friend though. Yes, these foxes that you see on the front cover here, they're telepathic and they can speak to humans' minds. I want one. This book was a real slog. Both Charlotte and I really felt like we were sludging through mud with this one. It was really, really slow going. It was not keeping us interested as the other books in this series. And in fact, we're both pretty happy that we can now put this to the side and read something else for a while. But if anybody knows how many Kristen Cashore is planning for this series, whether the next book is the last book, if it's the last book, I'll probably buy it and read it. But if it's going to continue after that, I might just DNF the series. I'm not interested enough to continue otherwise. So yeah, that's that one. The next book, however, Imposters by Scott Westerfeld. Can you tell by my smile yet? This was actually my May's star book, and I actually won the book haul token instead of the star book token. But I figured, you know what? I'm going to read my star book anyway, because I really, really did want to read this. So I did give you the synopsis for Imposters in my Bookgammon TBR, so I won't do that. But it's my notes say, same world, new villains, new heroes, newer technologies, but same love of reading. This isn't a new series, this is a continuation of Uglies, and I love it. Yes, I gave it 5 stars. It was my star book. So basically, if you don't know, Uglies by Scott Westerfeld is my favourite series of all time. I have read it multiple times. I reread the series again last year, and I love it. I love it so much, and I cannot wait for the Netflix film to come out with Joey King in it. They finished filming back in December, and we're waiting for all the special effects and everything to be finished and done, and editing, and then it's coming soon. I can feel it's coming soon, and I'm so excited for it. But Imposters is same world, but I think it's about 10 years later. We have new characters, we have a new city with new problems, new villain, and I really loved it. I love the concept of this twins being used as like doppelgangers. So to the world, this man has only one daughter, but actually he has twin daughters, and one is like a decoy for the other, and it was just fantastic. I'm not a massive lover of sci-fi, but Scott Westerfeld's sci-fi in his Ugly series and now in the Imposters series just makes sense. Like, I can see these things actually being invented and being in the world. And they just make sense for me, you know, like hoverboards. that makes sense. We're almost there anyway, aren't we? So it just, yeah, I love it because I can actually see this world being a thing. So yeah, can I say again? I love it. So yeah, The Imposters. If you have enjoyed Uglies, you will definitely enjoy the Imposter series. It's just more of the same, but with new characters, new love interests, and new villains, and it's just top notch. The next one I read was Assassination Classroom number 6. Notes say, love the life lessons that students are encouraged to learn by Kara Sensei. Still haven't killed him yet. Pretty much. Look, we're number 6 now. I've read number 7 this month in June. So there's not much more I can say about this series that I haven't already. It's a really fun series. I've given it 3 stars as always. And I'm going to just continue to read the series. The next one I read was The Thief on the Winged Horse by Kate Mascarenas. Yeah, Mascarenas. And I thought this was a middle grade. Somebody in the comments put me right that it was not a middle grade, that it was actually maybe a young adult or adult, I don't know. And they were absolutely spot on. My notes for this said, not so much about a thief on a winged horse, it's more about who stole the priceless doll and women fighting for their role in a man's world. Yes, the synopsis in this does say that the Kendricks have been making world famous dolls for over 200 years. However, each doll is special because they are imbued with emotions and feelings, which are basically the same thing, Nicola. And then they are sold to the general public. However, there is one doll that was created by one of the sort of founding families, and it's a priceless doll that the owners of the firm keep behind a locked sort of cage door thing, and it goes missing, and the story actually follows what happens to that doll. It didn't really get going. It didn't really give me any oomph, you know. It was kind of like it was kind of like a little bit, there was no, I want a roller coaster ride when I read a book, and this was like the little ladybird ride for toddlers, you know. So I mean, it was good, it was interesting with the discussion about the women not being allowed to do certain roles because they were only for men, those roles. So again, trying to be feminist, but just didn't give me that oomph. So Thief on the Winged Horse only got 3 stars from me. The next book I read was Blood on Snow by Jo Nesbo, and it's only a short one. This one got 2 stars, but it says, hitman with a conscience, hates violence towards women, sad ending. Yes, the reason why this only got 2 stars isn't because it's a bad book. It's actually a pretty good book for a short story. My problem is there was nothing to grab hold of. I give a 2 star to a book that I know I'm probably going to forget about very easily. It's not going to stick in my brain. I'm not going to think about it again after I've unhauled it. And that's what this is. It's not that it was a bad book. It's just that there's nothing memorable about it. There was a sad ending, which kind of made me go, "Aw." But I mean, if you like thrillers, you might enjoy this, but thrillers are not my go-to genre, so it takes a lot to make me really love a thriller, and unfortunately this one just didn't hit the mark. So I will be unhauling this, so if any of my thriller loving friends would like to take this off my hands, let me know, and I will send it to you. So yeah. The next one was my Waterstones book club pick. So I do attend my local Waterstones book club, and the book that they picked for me was The Shadow Glass by Josh Winning. Now, I also read the the ebook of this. However, when I went to the meetup at the end of the month, one of the other ladies who wasn't as taken with it as I was, kindly gifted me her copy because I loved it. I absolutely loved this book. Now, I will give you the synopsis for this because I'm not sure I gave you the synopsis in my Bookgammon TBR. So it says, Jack Corman is haunted by his father's failure. Director Bob Corman poured his heart and soul into The Shadow Glass, a mesmeric fantasy film populated by puppets. It flopped, turning Bob into a self-pitying alcoholic. Jobless and mourning his late father, Jack returns home, a place overflowing with movie memorabilia and painful memories. But Jack's world is thrown into chaos when the puppets in the attic start talking. So begins a desperate quest to save London from the evil creatures of his childhood stories. With fanboy Toby and studio Sue Amelia in tow, Jack must confront the world of the Shadow Glass and do his father proud. So yes, that is the synopsis for it. My notes on this say, Labyrinth, The Dark Crystal, and never-ending story, lover's dream. Puppetry, action-packed, can see it as a movie. I want a lub. Yes. I always want the side characters from these books. A lub is one of the creatures from the Shadow Glass, and I want one. So cute and adorable. It's like a little glob of like jelly monster stuff, and it's so small you can stick it in your backpack. But just you wait, there's more to the lub than you think. I loved this story. I was not a massive fan of films like The Dark Crystal and Labyrinth. I have watched them, I did enjoy them, but I didn't love them. But The Never-Ending Story, I love that film. Like, I could watch that and Hocus Pocus for the rest of my life and never get bored. So yeah, if you like those 80s cult classic films, you will absolutely enjoy this one. It just, I could see it happening in my head. I had Paul, is it Paul Rudd? I think Paul Rudd as playing Jack. I can just see him being this miserable, down and out son at the beginning of the movie, hating his father, and then seeing him changed by the end of the movie. I can just see him playing it. So, oh, somebody make that happen, please. Yeah, I'd love to see this as a movie. I think it would be an awesome movie. I could really see it playing out in my head, and I think that helped with my enjoyment of this. I think if you are not a fan of those movies and you don't have that 80s classic culture movie love, then you might miss some of the references and some of the sort of inspiration for this, and so your enjoyment might not be quite as high as mine. But if you're like me and you love The Never-Ending Story, there is a particular moment in this that you're going to be like, Falcor! So yeah, I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. So The Shadow Glass by Josh Winning. The next book I read a contemporary from start to finish. Yeah, doesn't happen often, but I did it. When We Collided by Emery Lord. I gave this one 3 stars. So my notes say discussions of bipolar disorder and loss of parent and depression and grief. The story of learning to survive after tragedy. Yes. if you are looking for a mental health rep kind of book, this one would qualify for that, because one of the characters does have bipolar. Now, I don't have bipolar, I have borderline personality disorder, which is sometimes confused with bipolar by people who don't know the difference. But I could relate. I think that's why I did enjoy it and I did read it, because as you know with me, it takes a lot for me to enjoy a contemporary. But because I could relate to this, because I could relate to that mental health representation, the mood swings, the manic and then the depression side, and all of the questioning and the insecurities and things like that, I could relate to it. And because of that, I did actually enjoy it and I gave it 3 stars. I don't intend to hold on to this. So again, if any of my close friends are interested, let me know. I will unhaul it to you. But yeah, I thought it was really... Again, I could see this as a movie. I could honestly see this as a Netflix movie. And yeah, I just think it would be one of those wholesome, sweet, loving kind of films, but deals with hard-hitting subjects like mental health. But yeah, I gave it 3 stars, so that's good. The fact that I finished it should say something. And the last book that I read, I had a lot of interest in this book when I put it onto my Bookgammon TBR, and that is 8 Will Fall by Sarah Harian. This was a fairy loot book that I have seen so many people just not bother to read, to unhaul, because it doesn't look as interesting as the other fairy loot books, and a lot of people have unhauled it. So I think that's why a few of my subscribers were kind of interested in my thoughts on it, because I haven't seen anybody else read it. My notes say, too short to really allow me to care about the characters and what happens to them, but dark gothic fantasy. I did give it 3 stars. Now, hear me out with this one. I really enjoyed this. It was scary in parts. It was almost horror in some parts. This is not fantasy. This is dark and this is scary. There are creatures in the dark chasing you, clawing at you. It was really atmospheric. I think if I'd have read this in the dark winter nights, it would have had much more of an impact. But it is too short. I wanted more. We start off with 8 characters being sent down into these dark caves, and I'm not going to say too much because I don't want to spoil it for people who do want to read it, but I just felt like I didn't get enough chance to know each character. And so the impact of the events that happen weren't quite as hard as I wanted them to be. They weren't quite as emotional as I wanted them to be. There was a couple of moments where I was like, oh, no, or no, oh my God, no. I did kind of have to read this with the light on. It did scare me a little. It's like, there were some moments. I think this book has the issue of when it was good, it was really good. But when it was bad, it was like, oh, just a bit more. Like, I don't know if this is a debut. I don't know if this is a debut. It doesn't say anywhere whether it is or it isn't. But it just feels like it had so much more potential, like with just an extra 100 pages to fill the characters in a bit more, to just get us to fall in love with these characters and then make the events happen would have been so much better. But we didn't get to fall in love with these characters or get to really care about these characters. So it did sort of fall short for me there. But it's not a bad book. It is not a bad book. It was failed more from lack of detail than anything else. The story, the plot, the characters themselves were amazing. I just didn't get enough. I just didn't get enough of them, you know? So yeah, 3 stars for 8 will fall. So that is it. That is all of the books that I read in the month of May. So let's go on to my statistics. So the physical pages of the books that I read, not including The Shadow Glass and The Sea Women, because I read those as ebooks. So although I do now own the physical copies, my stats do not take the physical copies into account because I read them as ebooks originally. So physical pages I read was 3,447. The ebook pages I read, I'm so proud of this number, 1,047 pages. So happy with that. However, the audio hours for owned and borrowed were both a 0 because I listened to 0 audiobooks this in the month of May. I think that's because my Scribd subscription ran out. Our finances are a bit all over the place at the moment. We're trying to sort them out, and so I had to let my Scribd subscription go. You know, times are hard. You have to make cuts and allowances, and unfortunately Scribd just had to go. So I haven't been listening to audiobooks as much as I used to, simply because of Scribd not being not having Scribd anymore. Anyway, let's carry on. So my star ratings, I gave 4 books 5 stars in May. I gave 2 books 4 stars, 6 books 3 stars, 1 book 2 stars, and there was no 1 stars, and I did not DNF a single book, which, considering we had a contemporary in there, that's pretty good. So for the genres or the categories, I read 1 thriller, 3 contemporaries. 3? Ah, yeah. The Mills and Boon I count as contemporaries. No classics, no middle grades, and no non-fiction. We need to change that. 1 manga graphic novel and 8 fantasy. So we can tell what mood I was in the month of May. May was a very difficult mental health month for me, so escaping into a fantasy world is something that I try to do. So I'm not surprised actually that I didn't read any non-fiction or classics, because they do take a bit more brain power. But middle grades, I'm kind of disappointed I didn't read any middle grades. Anyway, let's carry on. Oh, by the way, I read a total of 13 books. I don't think I said that. That's normally the first stat I give, but never mind. 13 books in total I read. The origin of the books, I own 11 and I've borrowed 2. Those were the 2 ebooks that I now obviously own. The format that I read the books, I read 10 physically, no books audibly, but 3 books e-bookily. Yes, I did. The binding of the books that I read, 2 were hardback and 9 were paperback. The gender of the authors, 4 were male and 9 were female. Now, oh no, damn it. The longest book that I read was actually Winterkeep, which was 511 pages. The shortest book I read was Blood on Snow with 172 pages. The oldest book I read was actually the, oh, wrong way, mangas. Assassination Classroom Book 6, which was published in 2012. And of course, the newest book that I read was The Sea Women, because it hadn't even been published at the time that I read it. I do not have the information at the moment. I haven't written it down. I've just noticed for the highest rated on for the highest rated on Goodreads or the lowest rated. So I'm going to research that after I've finished filming, and I will put it onto the screen for you. The worst book of the month, I'm sorry, it had to go to Blood on Snow. Like I say, it's not a bad book. It's just thrillers do not stay in my head after I've read them. It's not something I would reread. It's not something that I'm going to remember much after I've unhauled it. So it's not that it's a bad book or the worst. It's just that it's the least memorable. Let's put it that way. But my favourite book of the month, I'm sorry, it has to be Imposters. It was my star book for May and it lived up to that reputation. I absolutely loved it. And is it cheating that my star book, my best book of the month, is an ongoing continuation of my favourite series of all time? Maybe, possibly so. If I didn't choose The Imposters as my star book or my best book of the month, it would have gone to The Sea Women. So I would say that these two were on par for my best book of the month. I ummed and I ahed about it, but I absolutely loved both of these books. So these are the two that I would recommend out of my May reading wrap up that I suggest that you go out there and you pick up, because I love them. I love them a lot. So that is my May reading wrap up for you. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!